All right, well, most of the talk in California today is about Tropical Storm Hilary. We do also have dozens of wildfires going on in Northern California, so I just want to update our acreage on those, our containment numbers, where we're seeing some heat right now, and then what kind of weather we can expect over the next couple days. And in particularly, I want to focus, or in particular, I want to focus on how Tropical Storm Hilary is going to interact with some of the wildfires that we do have going on in California. And that might actually be the only silver lining that we have with this storm, because it's most likely going to lead to some serious flash flooding in Southern California up into the Sierra, but might actually help us out with some of the fires that we have going on in NorCal. So we'll just start off by looking at watch duty. This is always the easiest way to get an idea of the overall situation. You can see how many different fires we have going on in Northern California. This is because we had large amount of thunderstorm activity, lightning this last week that started a lot of different fires. The biggest of which is the SRF Smith River Complex. Looks like that's at about 22,000 acres. And that had some smoke coming off of it yesterday. We had some unhealthy air quality over this area because of the smoke. Head fire is about 6,000 acres. And then just coming through here, you also see the Elliott Canyon Three Creeks fires. That's at about 1,900 acres. SRF Bluff Complex is at about 2,000 acres. And then going a little bit farther down, we have the Deep Fire, which is 3,500 acres. So lots of different fires. Obviously, I can't go over all of these, but I think an easy way to see what some of the big ones are is to just check out our acreage on this map. We will go to the Smith River Complex first. So whenever you hear complex, that means it's a group of fires. So you can see one perimeter right there, but then if you back out, you can see there's a few different fires making up the Smith River Complex. Biggest of which, let's see, it looks to be the Kelly Fire at 15,000 acres, Holiday Fire at 7,000 acres, and then Hurdy-Gurdy. That might be the best name for a wildfire I've ever seen. 766 acres, and all of those are at 0% containment. Then we have the Happy Camp Complex. Within the Happy Camp Complex, we have the so Happy Camp in total is 8,400, 0% containment. But the biggest one that we have there is the Head Fire, and that's at 5,618. Then we have the Plant Fire. Now this one is down all the way in Southern California, and I maybe take what I'm saying right here with a grain of salt because I haven't actually looked at this fire, but the reason I haven't looked at it is because that's in Southern California, and we are seeing some heavy rainfall throughout Southern California today because of Tropical Storm Hilary. So I'm not really worried about wildfires down there. I'm worried about flash flooding, but actually that could be something to think about. There's a better chance of debris flows after you have a wildfire because it burns out a lot of the plants which have their root systems that hold the ground in place. So yeah, I haven't looked into that, but that's something that will most likely have some heavy rainfall over it today. So don't expect that acreage to go up. And then the SRF Lightning Complex that has the Mosquito, 1,000 acres, Lone Pine, 1,600 acres, Perch, almost 1,000 acres there. And then finally, we could probably go on this list for the entire video, but I'll just stop it right here. Deep Fire, that one's at about 3,500 acres. And you notice all of these seem to be at 0% containment, and that's because there's so many different fires going on that the resources are spread very thin. And just the overall focus in California right now is definitely in Southern California because of Tropical Storm Hilary. And you can see all of the moisture funneling in from Hilary right now. And that's actually what's going to help us on our wildfires. So if we look at mid-level water vapor, this is where you're actually going to be able to see the moisture in the atmosphere. And it looks to be to the east of a lot of our fires right now, but over the next couple of days, we're hoping that that moisture moves in over our fires, leads to some rainfall up there. Not so much rainfall that we get flash flooding, but enough rainfall that maybe we put the fires out. That would be ideal, but it could certainly help just bring a bit more moisture into our fuels and into the air to reduce our fire behavior. And then just speaking of fire behavior, we can look at these fires to see if we're seeing any active heat right now. So we'll just start with the Holiday Kelly fires. Again, we can back up. That's the SRF Smith River Complex. And what I mean by active heat, where you see the yellow, that's your fire perimeters. Where you see the yellow stars, that's some of your hotspots that are a bit old. Where you see the red, that's some of your newer hotspots. And then where you see these boxes, that's where the heat detections are, I'd say, the most recent. But sometimes those can also be the most inaccurate. And I always look for those red boxes because that's when you have very active fire behavior going on. And overall, doesn't look like the Smith River Complex has much heat off of it right now. If we go over to the head fire, might be one box on that northwestern corner, but yeah, that looks to be a bit old at the moment, so not seeing much heat off of that one. The perch fire, maybe a little heat on the northern edge, but yeah, not much. And then let's check down at the deep fire. Deep fire, not seeing any of those active heat boxes either. So that is all some good news, and I'd imagine it's because of some of this moisture that's already started to move in from Tropical Storm Hilary. And we've just also had great moisture recoveries in the overnight hours. You notice, so these are actual weather stations, this isn't model data, and this is near the SRF Smith River Complex. Look at the max RH. So overnight we had 100% relative humidity. When that happens, your air is completely saturated, so you're most likely getting some drizzle. It might even mean you had some rainfall out there. And then that one, max RH 95%. This one, a little bit higher, 40 or lower, 41%. Max RH 46%. So some of those stations around where some of our fires are, we're seeing great humidity recoveries overnight. What that means is some of the moisture in the air can find its way into your fuels, especially the finer fuels. And then if you ever tried to start a campfire with a moist log, it's pretty difficult. And the same is true for a wildfire. Now, before we go into the forecast and start talking about Tropical Storm Hilary's impacts, somebody yesterday asked if I could just zoom into the fires a bit more to see how close they are to some of the kind of communities that we have on the ground or any landmarks that we could potentially look at. And so we'll just look at where we see some of the heat detections, and then we'll look for some words popping up here because that usually means communities. Now, one thing I want to say is I couldn't find recent heat data. You notice all of these boxes that we have are showing older than 24 hours. So I'm not sure if they weren't able to fly last night, or maybe I'm just not looking in the right place. But keep in mind that this isn't going to be completely active. It's just the best data that we have to work with. So going up to the Smith River Complex first, see Darlingtonia, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And then we have Panther Flat Campground. Doesn't look as of right now that the fire has reached there just yet, but remember that is old data, so can't exactly say for sure. And then you have the Grassy Flat Campground. Looks like the fire reached around there, maybe ending around the Darlingtonia Botanical Trail. Now let's go up into here. Patrick Creek. So it looks like we might have some structures in there. It's a little hard to tell. One thing also to know is just because something's covered in yellow doesn't mean everything in there has burned. A lot of times they can actually create structure protection around different structures, and then you have little pockets of unburnt areas. You could call those islands. What about this one here? We have Idlewild. Looks like that's down here, and looks like the fire is up this hill. And the good news there is it's good to be in lower elevation than a fire. Fires move a lot faster uphill. It moves slower downhill. So as of right now, it looks to be in a good situation. Or not a good situation, but not seeing burn area there just yet. Now, I'm not going to do this forever, but let's just check out the head fire, because that's one that we've been following pretty closely, you can see that it definitely burned more up into these hills up here. That was expected to happen because that was where we didn't have fire history. And then it likes to go uphill. It also likes where there's little canyons like that. That's where you get gustier winds. And then you got Scott Bar down here. As of right now, looks like the fire is quite close. But again, remember that just because you're seeing the heat detections there doesn't mean everything under there is burned. And it's at least a good sign that most of the structures that we see here are at least outside of where a lot of those heat detections showed up. So just because that's not always the most accurate information to go off of, I'm just going to maybe close out of that for now. And then let's head back and start talking about Tropical Storm Hilary and how that's going to interact with our wildfires. So this is the path it's taking. Where you see that yellow is where you have tropical storm winds. It's going to move up into the Sierra. Right now it's no longer a hurricane, it's a tropical storm. Its winds just decreased to 65 miles per hour. And then even though that's the path it's taking, the area where you feel gusty winds and the area where you have flash flooding is a lot wider than that. And I actually wasn't planning on showing this, but I realized that this does kind of tie into wildfire. So this is where you have the greatest flash flood risk. And obviously, where you have the greatest flash flood risk is underneath that path. That's where, in purple, that's a 70% chance of flash flood risk there. But you do notice that there's even still a marginal, so a 5% chance all the way up here in Northern California. So where some of our wildfire activity is. Now let's just look at what Tropical Storm Hilary is going to look like as it moves in. Looks like it's directly over San Diego around 2 to 4 p.m. this afternoon. And then keep your eye on that purple color. That's showing where your strongest winds are. Mostly the eastern portions of California. So that's good news that we're not seeing those gusty winds over our wildfires. That could maybe kind of spur them back on and lead to some rapid growth, but it's good to see that those winds are staying to the east. And then what I want to do, probably the most important thing, is to see how much rain we're going to get and maybe if we're going to get rain. So throughout the day today, heavy rain directly over that or around that low pressure system in Southern California. Huge flash flooding risk. If you haven't seen my Tropical Storm Hilary live stream, I just did it about 30 minutes ago. You can find that on my channel. But as we get later into Monday, that's where the storm moves up into Nevada, and then that's where its moisture is going to start spreading out a lot more over California. And this is now getting into Monday. That's where it looks like we have some better rain chances showing up over our wildfires. And at some points there, you even see the yellow, which represents moderate to heavy rainfall. Now, a better thing we can do is actually, I wanted to show the live or the wide view first, just so you could see the storm moving in over Southern California. But now let's actually just zoom into NorCal and get the exact timing. So keep in mind that most of our fires are going to be right in this area of California. And I can actually just click through here. And there we go. All right, so that is 5 a.m. Monday. Looks like it's moved in over Tahoe. Now we start to see some of that rain getting closer by 11 a.m. on Monday. Starts to spread out more 2 p.m. Monday. That's where some of the moderate to potentially even heavy rainfall shows up 5 p.m. on Monday. And then it continues into 8 p.m., 11 p.m., and then even into Tuesday morning. That's 8 a.m. We're still seeing some light rainfall. And the last of it looked to be about 5 p.m. on Tuesday. So that would be some pretty great news for our wildfires up there. It actually looks like we have some decent rain chances. So just doing the wide view of the rain, yeah, most of it down in Southern California. We could see 6 to 10 inches in some of the mountains. So that's why there's such a risk for flash flooding, even more so than the damages we're expecting from wind and the tropical storm force winds that'll be moving in there. But along in Northern California, take a look at that. So let's now go the more zoomed in version. Let's go to local, Northern California. And this isn't just going to be good news in terms of our wildfires that we're talking about in Northern California right now. This could be great news for the rest of the season because this is going to bring some much needed moisture back up there. And parts of Northern California didn't see as much of the moisture that we saw throughout this last winter. There are areas that are still abnormally dry up there. So let's just click all the way through. And where you see the purple, that is that's between about 1 to 2 inches. But then, unfortunately, in the very northwestern parts of California, not seeing as much. And again, that's where we have the Smith River Complex. So we may miss out on the rainfall there, but it does look like the head fire and then some of our other fires that are in this area could see an inch, maybe even 2 inches of rainfall, that would just be great news. Now, one other thing that we need to look at is this is the GFS. This is the American model, and all of the models have been saying different things throughout this week on the exact timing, the totals, what exactly is expected. Got to go back to the last run so we get more of the images here. So this is going to be the European model. Keep in mind we were just looking at the American. This is what the European is showing. So it looks like still seeing 1 to 2 inches in parts of Northern California, still missing out on the very northwestern sections of the state, but that's pretty widespread rain for NorCal, so that is certainly going to help us out with our wildfires we have going on right now and really throughout the rest of this fire season. Now, with that being said, overall, this tropical storm coming in is not a good thing. We're going to see some widespread flash flooding. So if you are in Southern California, the storm's moving in just a couple hours. And it's already raining down there. So if you haven't taken any precautions yet, now is definitely the time to do it. And for the full in-depth forecast on Tropical Storm Hilary, you can go to my channel. I just finished that live stream. So hopefully we do end up getting some rainfall up in Northern California. Right now it looks like a pretty good bet. And hopefully the impacts from Tropical Storm Hilary in Southern California aren't as bad as it looks like it's going to be, but yeah, we'll most likely see some flash flooding there over the next 12 to 24 hours. So hope everybody stays safe, hope that this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.